Hey, this is Steve, and you are listening to the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast, a part of the BS Podcast Network. Enjoy the show.
In a world of ordinary fantasy football podcasts, ordinary guys rise up to bring you extraordinary analysis and entertainment. This is the FLAFFL House Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, and Stephen Marcus.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today is Sunday. It is November 5th, and this is the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Cotillo. I have with me Mr. Steve Marcus.
Hello.
What's going on, Steve?
Not a whole lot. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, anytime, buddy. It's really nice for you to be here and joining us. I really appreciate it. We also have Sal Lito here. What's going on, Sal?
A whole lot for me, actually. You know, there's never a whole lot going on for Steve, which startles me, especially on a football Sunday.
He's a very
much of a life over there, that kid.
He's a very stable individual. I like that about him.
Yeah, very consistent.
Have you seen those videos? There's nothing stable about this guy at all.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't really watch the videos.
You have made that abundantly clear.
You do put a lot of effort into those league videos, so I genuinely appreciate it. I just, maybe try to switch up the awards a little. That's all. You'll win me back.
Your complaint has been noted, all right?
And ignored.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. I deserve to be ignored right now. I sound like I'm in a wind tunnel, and I hate it. Everything about this setup is just starting to really wear on me, Steve.
We're going to go live to Kevin Cotillo down by the river as the smoke moves in.
Steve and I talked off the air the last time we recorded without Sal about how I'm a very predictable
You're a creature of habit.
I'm a creature of habit. I like to be in my place. I like things to be normal, and this is so far from the norm for me, and it drives me absolutely nuts. So I'm losing it a little bit more every day.
I mean, if anybody is familiar with The Shining, we all know how this is going to end.
Yes, that's good. I love my family very much, so I really don't think I'll go that route, but,
But they should be removed from the situation.
They should be, yes.
Give me the
bat. So I did get to watch a lot of football today, though, so that was nice. Steve, did you watch some football today?
I did. It's typically what I do on Sunday. So, yeah, I was able to do that.
That's excellent. I'm really happy for you. Sal, did you watch any football today?
Yeah, I watched plenty of football today. Got all the 1 o'clock games in. 4 o'clock, I watched right up until halftime. Then I had to shoot across town to cheerleading competition, where I watched football on my cell phone while I waited for other people's children to perform. Then while my kid performed, I shut the phone off.
That's nice. That's good. I assume they frown on that, although I'll bet they frown on the fact that you didn't watch the other kids either.
I could care less about the other kids. I really can. After years and years of watching other people's children perform and it meaning nothing in my life, I'm done pretending I care.
That's fair. Someone told me that you have to pay attention to the other kids, otherwise everyone else gets mad. Obviously, my daughter's too young to be at the point where she's performing for anyone, so I haven't had to worry about it. But I don't want to sit through 3 hours of a school thing just to watch my kid for 5 minutes. That's awful. That sounds terrible.
Who are these other people who get mad, and why should I care about them?
I don't know. This is just what I was told, Sal. You're the one.
Yeah, ignore them. I'm gonna let you know, as an experienced parent who's gone through this with 2 different daughters, screw those people and their children.
Ignore them.
Wow.
Ignore the children. Yes, ignore the children especially.
Steve, is that your fatherly motto these days? Ignore the children. Is that where you're going with?
Accept your own. He says accept your own.
All right, that's good. I like that. So since we all watched some football today, I think it would be a good idea to take some time and maybe talk about the football games. Maybe talk about some fantasy relevant things that happened. What do you guys think?
This is an excellent idea.
Hey, maybe we should record it and have a podcast.
Nah.
It's not get crazy.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna listen to that.
Someone's been drinking.
I think everyone knows that I don't. I don't. I can't even argue that. This is just so depressing. It's so depressing. All right, Steve, I believe you are going to be the one to take us through all these games. Is that correct?
Sure, why not?
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and take over?
All right, let's get started with this barn burner in Tennessee. Baltimore Ravens going to face the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans win this one, 23-20. Marcus Mariota had a pretty pedestrian game, I would say. He hasn't really blown the roof off the doors, I believe, as someone says, or other people say. Someone says that. He hasn't really done that much this season, and this game was another one that just he wasn't great in this one. So, Sal, what is your biggest takeaway from this Tennessee Titans game? Derrick Henry, he finally did something, and DeMarco Murray seemed to be hurt again. Are you ready for DeMarco Murray to sit out a game finally?
I've been ready for months for DeMarco Murray to sit out a game. He left. I thought it was over with. I thought this was great, and then I saw his fat head show up again later. So my biggest takeaway from this game was that it's time. It's time. Henry, he bulldozed his way into the end zone. The guy catches the ball to the backfield well. He does everything you would want a lead back to do. He's a monster of a human being. Just make the change.
Make the change.
I don't know. I gotta disagree with you a little bit. I mean, look, I agree.
Why not?
Well, because I don't think either of them were very effective today. I don't think you can blame this on DeMarco Murray. He's obviously banged up. Derrick Henry had a 3.3 yards per carry average, and yes, the touchdown was nice, but he didn't really do a whole lot for you. Then neither of them did anything in the passing game. So I'm with you from a fantasy perspective. They need to pick one. We talked about this, but I don't know that DeMarco Murray looks bad enough to be just pushed aside. Neither.
Oh, I don't think he looks bad enough. I'm just talking about what benefits me now. This is
it's just about you. I keep forgetting.
I thought this was about me.
Yeah.
Listen, nobody gained big totals in this game at all, but just for all of us people out there holding on to Henry, can we do it, please?
Yeah, like you said, there was no one on the Titans side of the ball that really did anything great. Delaney Walker had a pretty solid game with 71 yards. Rashard Matthews gets into the end zone to go with his 70 yards. It was nice to see Corey Davis back, although he only gets 2 catches on 5 targets for 28 yards. So just a pretty pedestrian game, mostly all around, but this Baltimore Ravens defense is pretty darn good. So on their side of the ball, Kevin, is there anyone that stood out to you that we should keep an eye on going forward? Alex Collins kind of had a lackluster day. Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco. So, I mean, is there anybody on your radar that we should be paying any attention to for the Ravens?
I'll tell you, I mean, if you got through this week without having to use any of them, I don't know that you really need to pay attention to them going forward, because now we're through most of the bye weeks, and that's where you would have used these guys. It was nice to see Jeremy Maclin had a pretty decent day, 8 receptions, 98 yards. He's flex worthy going forward, in my opinion. So I don't know that. But outside of that, I mean, I like Alex Collins. I like what he's been able to do. He needs touchdowns, but 13 carries for 43 yards really wasn't a stupendous day. And again, he's another guy that might be flex worthy going forward. But that's about it. Outside of that, there's really nothing on this roster that's worth talking about too much. Flacco threw the ball 52 times and still only had 261 yards and 2 touchdowns. So
I'll tell you. Well, I don't know if Macklin if he came back in the game. He did injure himself in this game. I didn't see if he ended up coming back, but it's very frustrating to own Alex Collins, because just when it seems like he's moving the ball and making sense, and it's 3rd and 1 inside the 3, and they bring Javoris Allen, and then Allen ends up catching a friggin' touchdown, which makes it even worse, because you're like, okay, that means they're going to do it again because it worked. And then Bobby Rainey got a touch inside the goal line area today. So very frustrating. We've said it for weeks, Kevin. I agree with you. I am in a ton of places before he started to get the ball. Frustrating to not see him get goal line work.
Yep, I would agree there. And I would just say the Baltimore Ravens, I believe they're on bye next week. And then in week 11, Danny Woodhead is going to be coming back. So that is definitely something that you are going to want to pay attention to going forward. All right, anything else from this game? No? Going once? Going twice?
He's got no.
All right, we are going to go to New Orleans, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went to go play a football game, and they lost to the Saints 30-10. There's some fireworks in this game in terms of punches thrown, as Jameis Winston was trying to give someone a wet willy, it looked like, and then Mike Evans came and pushed him down on the ground, and there was a little bit of a fight. He ends up getting tossed from the game. Jameis Winston ends up missing this game with re-aggravating that shoulder. I don't know why he even played in the first place. So Kevin, looking at this game, if Jameis Winston were to miss a game, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick in here now, and what does that mean for Tampa Bay as an offense, a team that has been disappointing basically all season long?
I mean, I think it means that you got to downgrade just about everyone, right? I mean, I'm not loving any of these people in this offense, given the way that Jameis has played when he's been out there and the fact that he may miss some time. I don't know. I didn't see what happened to Doug Martin. 8 carries, 7 yards. I don't know if he was just being ineffective or if he left with an injury. But this was just a poor game for them all around. The offense could not move the ball. Ryan Fitzpatrick does not inspire me with any confidence whatsoever as far as someone who can lead this offense to a better performance than this. We know that the Saints defense has played better this year, but not good enough to warrant nobody putting up points. I'm downgrading everyone until further notice. Basically, if you can get, obviously you have to play Mike Evans if he's out there. You have to, because he has that kind of ability. Doug Martin, I would have said is a guy that the same thing. You got to put him out there, but even he's bumping down to a flex option, or maybe even you bench him going forward with week 10, and you might have some better options. So. He was a guy that was drafted late for a lot of people because of the suspension, so hopefully you weren't counting on him and you have the ability to bench him if you need to. But I think everyone's on notice in this offense that until further notice, you're going to kind of wait and see and play. I don't even know if you could play matchups. This should have been a good matchup, except for the tight ends, as Sal pointed out in Sink or Swim.
Yeah.
Doug Martin left with a case of sucking today, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Early in the third.
That's what I thought.
In the third quarter, he did touch the ball again with 14 minutes and 25 seconds left in the third quarter. He did not touch the ball the rest of the game.
Ouch. On the Saints side of the ball, Mark Ingram, he kind of comes down to earth after having those big games since Adrian Peterson was shipped off, but Alvin Kamara, he picks up the slack there. He has a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown on a very nice play. He has 6 receptions for 84 yards. He leads the team in receiving yards this week. The offense, very efficient for them. Drew Brees only has 5 incompletions, 263 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a pretty efficient day, like I said. Didn't really have to do much. And the offense seemed to be clicking on all cylinders there. So is there anything that you can take away from this game that we need to be worried about, Sal?
Yeah, Drew Brees doesn't feel like Drew Brees this year, right? They've won 6 games in a row. They're doing well as an NFL team, but he doesn't have that fantasy impact that he's had in years past. The passing offense is not flowing. Luckily, the running backs have been good, combining to do really well. So, my biggest takeaway right now is that passing game is not what we had thought it's be, and it's not what it's been in years past. Michael Thomas, again, doesn't get you a touchdown, and with 8 for 65, not getting a touchdown really isn't a very good day. Ingram had 77 yards on 16 carries. He did well with what he was given, but Kamara was just really more effective today, and that's the downfall of having 2 guys that could do it, because if one's doing better and he just has that game and they stick with him, it sucks, because it's been back-to-back weeks coming into this one, and Ingram looked like he was a weekly guy who was a top 5 running back.
Yeah, and I think their defense, Kevin mentioned it a little bit, it hasn't been great, but it has been good enough to maybe change that game script that we're so used to seeing from the Saints for the last few years, where Drew Brees finds himself in a big hole early and has to throw the ball 35 to 40 times every game. He's just not having to do that this year, so it's obvious, but I agree. Even with what he's doing, He's not taking huge shots down the field all the time. They're definitely running the ball a lot because it has been successful, like you said. So I would definitely agree there, and probably would expect this to be the Drew Brees that we see throughout the season. Like you said, they've won 6 games in a row, so why would they change anything?
That makes sense. They are here to win NFL games.
They've played 7 games so far this year. He's thrown the ball, I guess this was the 8th, right? So he's thrown the ball 248 times plus the 25 he threw tonight. So that is way lower than his season or his career average for attempts in a season. They're throwing the ball less. The defense is picking up the slack, and I think you're right, Steve, about the game scripts. It is just going to keep this offense different than what we're used to seeing, and I'm worried about Michael Thomas. To Sal's point, I'm concerned that he's not going to have those big games that you're expecting out of him. And he was a very high draft pick for a lot of people, so I'm sure that's hurting.
I would agree. All right, you guys ready to move on? All right, good. Glad to hear it. Let's talk about this awesome game. The Denver Broncos go to Philadelphia to face the Eagles, and they run into Carson Wentz. This game was bad. We got Brock Osweiler, the Brock Osweiler everybody pretty much expected to see today. He throws 2 interceptions, and the Broncos found themselves down early. They were down 17-3 in the first quarter, which is not what they want to do. They do not want to have to rely on Brock Osweiler to throw the ball, but they did, and they end up getting blown out. Carson Wentz, he doesn't even throw for 200 yards, but he has 4 touchdowns on 15 completions. That is efficient. Jay Ajayi, first game as an Eagle, he has 8 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. Corey Clement has 2 rushing touchdowns, so this game helped Carson Wentz, and that was just about it, unless you had a late Trey Burton add into your lineup after Zach Ertz was a surprise scratch in the morning. Sal, what are you taking away from this game?
I added Trey in 4 leagues today and started him. And I tried to recommend to my son, because my son had whoever his tight end was on a bye week, and he told me to put in Cameron Brate. And I said, switch it to Burton, and he did not. It's not going to cost him the week, but that little bastard should listen to me. What I'm taking away from this is the Broncos are not very good. I'm sorry, Steve. They're just really not very good. And the Eagles just are. They're flat out. They look like the most complete team in the NFL right now. They add all of their running backs active today, and all of them seem to get touches, and they were, for the most part, successful. Jay Ajayi was going to get limited touches, and he did with only 8, but with a huge run for a nice touchdown that he snuck in the pylon. Looks like a good fit so far. To your point, as I was saying preseason, I don't know if you're going to have a consistent weapon in this offense every week as a result of Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz is going to have results based on all the different weapons that he has to play with. So this week it was Jeffrey and Aguilar. The people who relied on him didn't get what they wanted. So Carson Wentz is a guy you have to start every week. I got to stop playing around with him and Cam Newton, even though Cam's rushing yards brought up this week to make it somewhat balanced. I got to stop messing around. He's going into the bye week this week, coming out of the bye week and into week 10. He should be in your week 11. This is week 9, right? Going into week 11, Carson Wentz is a guy you play every single week. He's matchup proof.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree there. Kevin, on the Broncos side of the ball, it seemed like Brock Osweiler had a 1-game audition here. And the reports are that if he did not play very well, then Paxton Lynch might be ready to play next week. They're going to try that, I believe. I don't think this is a showing that inspired much confidence there. So is this a team now that is kind of one that you can't really start anybody? Demaryius Thomas did have 8 receptions and 70 yards, finally gets into the end zone. But with Paxton Lynch starting next week, are you going to be rolling any of these guys out there with any type of confidence?
With confidence, no, but I'm going to roll them out there. I mean, I think you're starting Demaryius Thomas, and I think you're starting Emmanuel Sanders because they're guys that can do, at the very least, they're going to get you something like they did today, right? Demaryius Thomas got you 8 catches and 70 yards and a touchdown in PPR. That's not a terrible day. It's not a Demaryius Thomas wide receiver 1 day, but it's kind of what you have to expect out of him. Emmanuel Sanders just coming back from injury only gets you the 1 catch in this one for 30 yards, so at least a 30-yard grab. But I think those are 2 guys that you're going to continue to roll out there because you probably not necessarily have to, but They're wide receiver twos. I mean, that's what they are. Sometimes wide receiver threes, but they're in that 2-3 range that you're going to start them because they're startable. But that's about it. You're not depending on them for anything more than that. At this point, you need to have subsidized your roster somewhere else in order to continue playing and expect to make the fantasy playoffs. So the biggest question for me at this point with the Broncos is what are they going to do next year? Because unless Paxton Lynch comes in and actually, does look better than he did the last time we saw him, which was he looked terrible. I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to have to make a play for one of the free agents because this defense isn't going to last forever. And obviously it was terrible today, but in general, it's a very good defense. And historically, people have felt it was a championship defense. They have won a championship with it. So you kind of gotta expect them to try and load up on a quarterback somewhere along the line and make another run, right?
Yeah, I would definitely expect him to. I think John Elway has taken a lot of heat this year for his drafting job, especially at the quarterback position, and so he's got to try to make another. He's not going to land another Peyton Manning, but there are going to be options available for him next year, whether or not it's through free agency or through the draft. If they want to try and trade up and get an early draft pick to draft a new guy, they definitely have to do something. So I would agree with that. And I would also look to be...
So,
what?
Go ahead, buddy.
I was just going to say Devontae Booker.
The other part of this is the offensive line looks absolutely terrible. So
Yep.
I'm not sure what they need to do there, but they need to get some new guys in there too, and maybe that makes a little bit of a difference for particularly guys like C.J. Anderson and Devontae Booker, which we were just about to talk about. So maybe you'll mention those guys now.
Yeah, I was just going to say I would be looking to add Devontae Booker. C.J. Anderson got injured, but he was able to return rather quickly. But Devontae Booker did get into this game, and he has looked pretty decent since he's come back from his injury. So definitely someone I would be looking to stash at the end of my bench.
Yeah, after a couple of good games to start the season, C.J. Anderson's become somebody you do not want to play. As you wrap up this game, and we lead into what I probably believe will be the Rams and the Giants.
Yes.
This was an interesting tweet that just came out from Adam Schefter, and it involves the two quarterbacks that were drafted 1 and 2 last year from these two games, and it's the first time in NFL history that quarterbacks selected number 1 and 2 in the same draft, Goff and Wentz, each threw 4 touchdowns on the same day. They both kicked ass, these two kids today.
Yeah, and I was just talking about Carson Wentz and how he threw his 4 touchdowns on only 15 completions. He had 199 yards. Well, Jared Goff threw his 4 touchdowns on 14 completions, and he had 311 yards. So both of these guys, like Sal just said, we're just dealing. We are going to move on. The Rams go to New York, and they demolish the New York Giants 51-17. This one was not close at all. I mean, I guess it was. It was 7-7 at one point, but at halftime it was 27-10. So it got out of hand really quick. If you had a Rams player in your lineup, he basically paid off for you. You had Tyler Higbee. He's even scored a touchdown. Robert Woods, he scored 2 touchdowns. Sammy Watkins, he has 1 catch, but it's a bomb for a touchdown. That is what he does. Todd Gurley, he scores 2 touchdowns. The Rams are scoring points today, scoring a lot of points, and the Giants, they were not. So, when you lose your 2 best wide receivers, what do you expect from this team? What are you doing with this team at all? Does anybody, Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, is that about it for you, Kevin?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what else. I mean, I spot started Eli Manning, and he was somewhat serviceable today, but he only threw 220 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he threw a pick. And I believe he had a fumble, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he had 2 fumbles and recovered one of them, so it was almost worse.
Yeah, so, I think those are the guys. Orleans Darkwa gets 16 for 71. Maybe he's a flex play for you somewhere down the line, but I think this offense is just absolutely atrocious. There's no offensive line to speak of. How they let someone like Dwayne Brown get dealt to Seattle and don't make a play for a guy like that is absolutely unbelievable to me. Although I think the only thing you could think is that they're 1-7. They were 1-6 at the time. They're 1-7 now. And, maybe they thought, why waste an asset on a team that's not going to go anywhere anyway? So I think that's it for those guys. I think the real question, the only thing we should be asking about the Giants now is what are they going to do in the offseason as far as the offensive line and whether or not they're going to use it in what is clearly going to be a high draft pick on a replacement for Eli Manning.
And a word was out earlier today that he might start losing touches as early as next week. they might let other quarterbacks start to see time in this offense.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, and they have to do something with that offensive line. They don't seem to try to address it at any point. All offseason they didn't do anything, and look what's happened. I mean, they had all these offensive weapons, and I know the injuries and stuff don't have anything to do with the offensive line, but now that all those weapons are gone and the offensive line is this bad, it really starts to show, even if Eli does have time, who's he really throwing the ball to? It's tough. It's tough all the way around. This offense had so much promise going into the season, too. So much. Is there anything else that anyone wants to talk about on this game?
Just that, you and I were talking about it before when we were waiting for Kevin, that with Seattle losing and the Rams winning this game, they've now got control of that division. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
6-2.
With this young team and a young head coach coming in. Yeah, they've played amazing. They are scoring more than any other team in the league. They put up a 51 spot today, but they're averaging 30-plus a game, and the defense looks really, really good. So I don't think it's a fluke. We are 8 games into the season now, halfway through. The Rams are a force to be reckoned with, and they have a ton of young weapons. It's an exciting team to watch. It's crazy to think Jeff Fisher was holding his crap back.
All right, then we are going to mosey on down the list of games today. Atlanta Falcons go to Carolina. They lose to the Panthers. Final score.
You suck, Matt Ryan. Oh, I'm sorry.
Would you like to say something about Matt Ryan?
No.
No, are you sure? Would you like to say anything about Devontae Freeman?
Way to drop the ball.
Sounds like you have something to say about him.
Way to drop the ball in the end zone, Julio.
Oh, God.
Oh, man, that was just brutal. Just brutal to watch.
God damn it, the Falcons suck.
They're not very good.
How long was that play that Julio dropped?
It was like 53 yards or 45 yards between 50 yards. It was bad.
Yeah, that would have been a hell of a day, huh?
It was in the breadbasket, as Kevin's.
Does Kevin say that?
You say that, don't you, Kevin?
I don't know that I say that.
I don't know if
I
I've
don't know
ever
that
heard
that's
him say
something
that.
I say.
Not like a Kevin type of thing to say.
I don't think I say the breadbasket.
You ever carry bread in a basket?
I have carried bread in a basket. I like when they bring you bread in a basket to a restaurant.
That says a lot about you.
You like it warm? Do you prefer the bread to be warm or the butter?
I like the. Wow, that's a tough question.
Wouldn't the
Can I
butter
say
just
both?
be melted?
It's a pretty stupid question, actually. Let's get back to
But I don't like frozen butter because then it's too hard to spread.
Do you freeze
Tell
butter?
me about it.
Who freezes butter? Who's freezing butter these days?
Whatever. Let's just carry on.
My God.
Butter can't freeze, just so you know. But go ahead.
Steve, are Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman ever going to be good again? I know Tevin Coleman gets in the end zone on this one, but overall their days were pretty mild and they just don't look the way they did the last couple of years.
No, this entire offense doesn't look like it has the last couple of years. And it starts, Matt Ryan threw for over 300 yards today and a couple touchdowns, but throughout the entire year, he hasn't looked as good. And these running backs, this running game in general, has not looked as good. I was going to ask Sal about Devontae Freeman because he's got him in falafel. We've followed him since he's become hot garbage the first year that he broke out in 2015. And he's just not the same player. All of these players, Julio does end up still having a good day with over 100 yards receiving with his 6 receptions. But other than that, this team is just not the same. They are not scoring touchdowns. Their stars are not scoring the touchdowns. We're just not seeing the team that we were used to seeing. And I'm not sure, like Sal just said, we're halfway through the season now. These teams kind of are who we thought they are. And, if they're not who they thought they are, they're showing us who they are. And this is kind of what we're getting from them. We've seen it a few weeks in a row now from the Falcons, and I'm not sure it's going to change at all.
And then what? They're 4-4?
Yep.
And Bill Parcells' famous line is, "You are what your record says you are." They're a 500 team average, right? So it's just it's not getting better. I'm sad.
You do sound sad. We're talking about Cam Newton make you happier at all?
I'm sad.
It would
sad.
be if he scored a few more points, but Kevin's sad because he's in a wind tunnel.
That's right. I have that constant buzz of this stupid vent that is going to drive. Never mind. Sorry. Let's continue.
You should drink more.
I really should drink more.
Yeah, come on, man. Come on.
We don't have any beer in the new place. The fridge is all kind of packed.
I'm telling you,
Stop.
this is The Shining. I mean, this is The Shining all over again. This is not. As soon as the snow moves in New England, it's pretty much over.
My hope is that this will be a mild year and we'll be out of here before the snow actually starts.
Man, your family's safety depends on it. So I hope so. I
very
hope
true.
that's the case. All right, the Panthers side of the
Wait,
ball.
Kevin, I want you to look out the window. Kevin,
There's no windows, Sal.
a lot of hedges?
No
Is there a
window. You're a goddamn asshole.
okay? If you see two twin girls at the end of the hallway in that apartment complex, do not talk.
Red rum.
Oh man, let's make this podcast 2 hours long.
All right, let's do it.
No.
So Devin Funchess, is that a thing now that Kelvin Benjamin's not around? We gonna talk about that at all?
I don't know. He kind of seemed like the same guy, right? That he's been.
It's all right.
that he's
5
been all year.
catches, 86 yards.
I want to ask why they keep giving the ball to Jonathan Stewart. He's their turnover specialist. Every time they feel like not having the ball anymore.
Today.
Yeah, they're just like, this drive's going good. Let's get rid of it. And then they give it to Jonathan Stewart and just let him fumble it away. So that was a pretty good game plan. But I was happy to see Christian McCaffrey get 15 carries, 66 yards. I will take that. He does get into the end zone. And then he also adds his, 5 receptions and another almost 30 yards. So I was happy to see that. This passing offense is just going to be, with Cam Newton, it's different each and every week. He only completes 13 passes for 137 yards. His day on the ground, like Sal said, is what saves him in fantasy. He had 86 rushing yards and a touchdown, so that's what saves him. But from a receiving standpoint, I don't think you can trust any of these guys each and every week until Greg Olsen gets back. I think once he returns from IR, he's going to be the most consistent guy, the one that you can rely on most on this team.
I would say if you have room, add Curtis Samuel if he's available. He got a lot of action today. I know his numbers don't look fantastic. He only caught 3 for 23, and he had 1 carry for 14. But they did throw his way a lot, and he was on a field a lot. He was on the field for the second most wide receiver snaps behind Funchess. So he's a guy I think they will start to work in. On a Saturday night show that I do with Todd Burrows, he was a guy that Todd brought up as maybe the reason they moved Benjamin was that Funchess could step into the Benjamin role and Samuel could step into the Ted Ginn role as that big play downfield threat. So it's something I would consider if you are in need of a wide receiver.
Very interesting. Ed Dixon, he's been a solid tight end fill-in for Greg Olsen, and he has 0 catches on 2 targets today. So
Not today, Ed.
big stinker for him. Anything else from this one? Anybody? Bueller? No? All right. Yeah. I think as we're moving on to this Jacksonville Jaguars and Cincinnati Bengals game would be a good time to talk about the draft app because...
Oh, draft app.
Oh.
I love you.
Why do you love the draft app, Sal?
Oh, let me tell you the ways. Well, I mean, we talk about this on a regular basis. It's almost like we're being paid to do it. No, I love the draft app for a lot of reasons. Tony, our good friend Tony, who writes for FLAFFL.com, has decided to start challenging all of us. I got to get one in there. He claims I've beaten both of you guys, but it's a great place to go and challenge your friends, especially guys that you're playing in leagues with, where your redraft teams, your season-long teams, have sustained injuries, suspensions. A new thing this week, ejections. So you could go there each week and you can draft a whole new team and you could start fresh. None of the bad taste of having Wendell Smallwood in your mouth. Oh, that came out so totally wrong.
Yeah. Why? Why did...
You can choose from any one of these wonderful.
Ask why having Wendell Smallwood in his mouth is wrong.
No, I don't. No, I don't need to ask why. I don't want any more about that.
All right.
You could basically choose from any one of the 5 active Philly running backs each week. Yeah, no. In all seriousness, it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to continue to play because we're into week 9, going into week 10. And for a lot of people, their season-long leagues are done. There's no salvation. There is no way to make the playoffs. You still have a way to play fantasy football every single week.
Steve, one of the things that I want to ask you, since we're a little further down in the season, we were checking in on your winnings, from our heavy best ball participation earlier in the off season. And, throughout the season, we've kind of been checking in on your gambling addiction and how you're doing and whether or not you'll have enough money next year to support yourself.
Yeah.
How's your season longs looking currently?
Slowly but surely they've been dwindling. Slowly going down. I'm still, looking at a profit at the moment. So, but yeah, things need to turn around. I need some guys to turn it up. I need some guys to show up. And what I love most about draft is that today, why we bring this up right now with this game, is that Leonard Fournette surprised a lot of people by being inactive today. And the draft app, not a lot like many other DFS sites will let you get on there and swap somebody out. Well, the amount of people that went on to swap Leonard Fournette out evidently happened at a bad time because a lot of people were not able to do that. And what I love most about the draft app is that when they were able to get back online, they recognized the problem. They understood that everybody was trying to do it and were not able to, and they make it right. They do not let you just deal with that issue, especially when it just happened to be something like being able to get on right now because of a server issue or whatever it ended up being. They take care of you. They're going to refund you if that was the case. They're going to maybe give you your projected points for those players if you were not to get them out of there, depending on what kind of tournament that you are in. We talk about it each and every week. They take care of your bad breaks. And this is just another one this week that they're going to do something for you because of something bad that happened in the world of fantasy football. So that is what I love most about the draft app. They are looking out for the customer.
Yeah, I love the customizability of the app.
Customization?
All the customization. That's the word.
Customizification.
It's got a customizification of the contest. You can set up contests in any way you want. You can set up one-on-ones, head-to-heads, as some people traditionally call them. You can set up group drafts where you can draft against multiple people. You can get into random drafts with people. You can go do all kinds of denominations. You can do $1, $10, $20, whatever you want. You can set it up. You can do long-standing drafts if you have the time to do it throughout the week before the games get started. You can set it up in any way you want, play however you want. You could do you can pick teams in a, what's the word, Sal? The ones that you love to do there. The Dream Team feature. You can get in there. And then we've talked about the expert drafts quite a bit, where you can go in and it takes out all the best players from the certain position, makes you really dive deep into the fantasy. So if you think you got more knowledge than your friends, definitely do one of those and show them. So you want to go to playdraft.com/falafel, or you can go to the Playdraft app on iTunes or the Google Play Store, and you can use promo code falafel. That's FLAFFL, and you can deposit $10, and they will get you into a free contest next weekend. So go to playdraft.com/falafel or the Playdraft app on iTunes or the Google Play Store and use promo code falafel. How do you spell that, Sal?
Capital F, capital L, capital A, capital F, capital F, capital L.
That's nice. All caps.
All caps, yes. And they'll get you into the contest. So get in there and let's keep going, Steve.
Yeah, so, like I said, the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Cincinnati Bengals 23-7. It came out at 8:30 that Leonard Fournette was inactive for this game. Evidently, he missed some treatment earlier on in the week. He missed a meeting, and he missed the team photo shoot, amongst some other things. So it took the fantasy world by storm when he was inactive today. And then also in this game, we had A.J. Green throw quite a few punches at Jalen Ramsey. So, Sal, I know Jalen Ramsey is a player that you really enjoy talking about. So what did you think about this little fight that we saw today? And would you suggest people go and start punching other people in the helmet?
No. As a guy who's played a lot of hockey in his life, not only do I recommend you don't do that, if you're going to, don't take the gloves off before you do. But that's a different topic. Jalen Ramsey is a guy who I've gone on and on about, who is a football player. He is probably the best, if not one of the best cornerbacks in the league right now. He's in his second season, but he is a son of a bitch. Along the lines of when this fight happened today, Steve, you thought the same thing as me. You remember Cortland Finnegan, who was a guy who he loved to get under receivers' skin. He would talk trash to them constantly. But it's not like like, with like Deion Sanders used to talk stuff and you jar back and forth, and then if you beat each other, there was really no physicality with those guys. Although I could remember one time with Jerry Rice, but this guy wants to scuffle with you. I don't know what it is that he said to AJ Green. He said something, but he also took a cheap shot at Green when he had his back turned to him. I'm sure it had gone on all game up to that point. Green immediately got up, basically choked him from behind and brought him down and started throwing heavy punches that didn't make sense into a helmet. They were both thrown out, and I saw a report later in the day that Ramsey was told he was thrown out because it was believed he threw a punch. Technically, he did not throw a punch. He did double hand shove him from behind. So it's going to be interesting how the league reacts to that because he was thrown out supposedly inappropriately. By the way, we talked about Evans before. He should have been thrown out of the game. He clearly threw a punch or two, which was missed. Seemed like a lot of pent-up aggression in the NFL today with a lot of different players. And in fact, in this game, if you saw at the end, Blake Bortles went at it with his coach on the sideline. So a lot of anger going on over there in this game today.
Man, everyone's so angry.
Well, I think when you think about these two teams that are both garbage right now, I'd be a little pissed off too. So, from a fantasy
Jacksonville's playing well, man.
Yeah, I guess
They're 5-3.
They're a great defense with a very solid running back. That's it.
Let me introduce you to Marquez Lee.
Marquise Lee?
I don't care what you call him, goddammit. Just
8 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown. Yes, he had a great day. That's it. And you can't tell me that you can count on that every week.
He's been very consistent lately, actually. But he's been a consistent wide receiver too.
Didn't he miss games recently?
No. He's been battling with a knee injury in practice, but he's played.
I see. Well, in any case, I don't know that you can consistently count on him.
No.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't think you can.
I agree. I don't think there's anyone in this passing game that you can consistently count on. Marquise Lee, he has had a few weeks in a row now of pretty solid output, but we know that can disappear any week, which I know you can say that for any player, but for this passing offense for the Jaguars, I think it's a little more susceptible to vanishing, especially when they do get Leonard Fournette back next week, assuming that he is active. I think that they'll probably lean very heavy on him. And then on the Bengals side of the ball, Joe Mixon, 13 carries for 31 yards, not great, but he does get into the end zone for the first time this season. And it's this game was pretty ugly for the Bengals. They only scored the 7 points, and other than that, after AJ Green gets thrown out of the game, he only has 1 catch for 6 yards. There's no receiver on the team or a pass catcher that catches over 3 passes, and that was Joe Mixon for 15 yards. So just an ugly game for the Bengals all around. On defense and on offense, you'd expect it to be a little bit better. We shall see what happens with AJ Green going forward. But this run game, Jeremy Hill was not even active today. Giovanni Bernard only gets 1 carry for -1 yards, and Joe Mixon gets the rest. Kevin, do you think Joe Mixon is going to take over this backfield in terms of opportunity, not necessarily, but just by running away with the job?
Good Lord, can we stop talking about anyone that runs the ball on Cincinnati Bengals? They're so terrible. This offensive line is absolutely the worst in the league. I think it might be worse than the Giants. It's very close, in my opinion, how bad these two offensive lines are. No one will ever be, this season will be very good at running the ball, whether it's Joe Mixon, Jeremy Hill, Giovanni Bernard, any of them. They're not going to be very good running the ball. But to answer your question, having said that, yeah, I think Joe Mixon's going to get the opportunity. I mean, why not? He's a young guy. He's the talented guy, and you think that he should have the opportunity. I just don't think it's going to lead to much because they can't block. Have you seen the running lanes that they get? There isn't one.
No, I haven't actually. I'm still waiting.
Yeah, they literally have to create everything on their own, and you can't sustain a running game like that. He may break a long play from time to time. I'm still waiting to see it, but he may do it. But that's about it. I mean, the kid's a talented guy, and hopefully they get some offensive line help in the offseason, and he can have a better second season. But I think this team's a mess all around. Obviously, AJ Green's frustrated with the way things are going, and it showed on the field because he seems like a very level-headed player most times. So to see him react like this means there's a lot of frustration somewhere else, in my opinion. So I don't think you can trust anyone on this offense until, you're going to start AJ Green when he's out there, but I'm not expecting much for the rest of the season because I think these guys, it looks to me like they've mailed it in.
Interesting. All right, anything else from either side of the ball here? Nope.
No.
All right. We're going to talk about this QB battle. The Indianapolis Colts against the Houston Texans. Colts go into Houston and win 20-14. We had Jacoby Brissett versus Tom Savage. A lot of people wondering how Tom Savage was going to affect this Houston Texans offense. And, for DeAndre Hopkins, it was kind of the same old. He ends up finishing the game with 6 receptions, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Now, a lot of that did not come till towards the end of the game. The first half, in particular, was pretty rough. You thought things were going, how a lot of people thought they would. Tom Savage did not look very good. But as the game went on, he kind of got into his zone, started targeting DeAndre Hopkins a ton. He has 16 targets, so you know that he is getting all the volume still. You got to love that. But, you can noticeably tell that Deshaun Watson was not there. And then on the Colts side of the ball, Jacoby Brissett, he hooks up with T.Y. Hilton for 2 touchdowns. He throws for over 300 yards. Hilton has 175 yards receiving on 5 catches. Jack Doyle has another solid game. Frank Gore has a pretty solid game in terms of, he gets a lot of volume. Neither running back gets into the end zone this week. Sal, you can pick whatever you want to talk about from this game. What do you got?
I'm going to tell you what I got. How many times do I got to see an NFL player who makes millions of dollars not touch a guy when he goes down to the ground? Give me a break. T.Y. Hilton, phenomenal day. And T.Y. Hilton, if you watch him on that play, he let the other defender run past him. He watched him. As soon as that guy got past him and his back was to him, he got up and ran. So it was such a heads-up play by him. But this is week in and week out. If the guy goes down and you walk past him, put your hand on him. This happens like once a week now. It's kind of embarrassing that you get paid and that happens. There is no doubt that they lost this game because of Tom Savage. Even on that final drive, the final opportunity that they had, he had Will Fuller lined up one-on-one coverage at the top of the field, and he was force-feeding the ball to Hopkins at a detriment to the team. Fantasy owners are going to be excited that he's over-targeting him. But as far as Houston goes, Tom Savage lost the game for them today. And listen, he's a young quarterback just like Watson was. He's getting his feet wet. Like we said on the preview show, and I said it the other night on a Saturday show, he has weapons. Get the weapons in these guys' hands, but don't force it to one guy. There's other guys there.
Kevin?
Yeah, you see 16 targets to Hopkins, and you think, how can you not think that, Sal? I think you're completely right. You can't force it. You have to throw the ball around. You got to mix it up a little bit and target some different guys a little bit more often than he is. And maybe he'll learn to do that over the course of the season, but we didn't see too much of that last year when he played either. So I don't have high expectations for this offense going forward, and it just looks not good at all compared to what we were seeing from them. I think Lamar Miller had started to look like a really, really good running back again, and this kind of kills his value. He does get 3 catches for 34 yards in this one, so overall nice yardage day, but doesn't get in the end zone, and they just can't move the ball the way they used to. I will say this. I'm curious, Steve, in your mind, do you think Jacoby Brissett is playing well enough that he might get a look as someone who may want to try to trade for him to be a starter?
I don't know. He's been inconsistent in my mind. We saw the Monday night game that they had against the Titans earlier in the year, where in the first half he looked great. He got the Colts out to a lead, and then in the second half, when they started to get a little more conservative, he's got out of his rhythm a little bit, and then when they needed him to get back into it, when the Titans caught up and eventually took the lead, he wasn't able to get back into that rhythm. So I would like to see a little more consistency out of him. The balls that he threw that were completed were really nice passes. The deep bomb to T.Y. Hilton early in the first quarter, that was a great pass down the seam. But other than that, he has a lot of passes that look bad. So I'd like to see a little more consistency out of him. In this day and age, we've seen how bad the drop off from the good quarterbacks to the mediocre ones to the bad ones, and I would say he's probably somewhere right there in the middle. He's proved to be pretty serviceable. The team's not doing great; they're still 3-6, but he's looked pretty decent at times, and I think he's obviously gotten this opportunity. He's better than Scott Tolzien is, and so I think he definitely will have a job going forward. Whether or not it's as a starter, I don't really know if I could say that for sure yet.
Would you like to have him on the Broncos over the 3 guys you have?
That's not fair. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would, but, God, that's so terrible. That question makes me sad.
The next John Elway.
I'm not saying he's the next John Elway in any
they both run.
I was really just curious what your thoughts were. I mean, I think he's pretty good. I think that he can continue to improve, and I think that he's played better. You're right. There was some inconsistency there, but I think that he's played better. I mean, he's still under contract for another couple of years, so we'll see if they even, make any kind of move like that. I don't know if anyone's going to be willing to trade for him, but he's definitely a guy in a dynasty format I'd like to keep on my roster. It's a good thing I got him for $5.
Yeah, you cannot argue with that steal there.
Yeah, I sold him to him.
No wonder he's bringing that up. Great. All right, well, going forward, T.Y. Hilton, he explodes this week, but he's a guy that you put in there each and every week because of these games. But I think the one that you can rely on most often is going to be Jack Doyle. He gets 8 catches on 9 targets for another 60 yards this week. From a consistency standpoint, he's somebody that I feel pretty safe plugging and playing each and every week, along with T.Y. Hilton. Anybody else from this game before we move on to these afternoon games?
I think we should pour one out for Moncrief. He's just not good.
Oh, man.
I mean, look, I still think he's a talented guy, and I'd like to see where, if he leaves in free agency or what he can do when Andrew Luck's back or whatever. But it was probably my biggest miss this year for sure.
Oh yeah, he's just completely vanished. It's kind of sad. So much hope. I remember going into last season how much everybody loved Moncrief. Times have changed. I'll have a beer from Moncrief later. All right, that's all. We're going to move on. Arizona Cardinals go to San Francisco. They beat the 49ers 20-10 in a game that was pretty boring. Pretty boring in this game. Adrian Peterson, Sal, 159 yards rushing.
River.
Drew Stanton under center this week. He has 200 yards passing with 2 touchdowns. Larry Fitzgerald, 5 catches for 70 yards. So, you know what we get from him. Jermaine Gresham and Jerome Brown end up catching those touchdown passes, so I'm sure that helped out a lot of people. And then on the San Francisco side of the ball, Carlos Hyde, not a great day, 12 carries for 41 yards. Carlos Hyde did have 9 catches for 84 yards, though, so that definitely helps him out quite a bit. And then other than that, Pierre Garçon out for the season. He was placed on IR this week. So not a lot of receiving options here. George Kittle, 3 catches for 27 yards. But other than that, kind of spread out all over the place. I don't know. This game was kind of boring. Anyone enjoy watching this
Steve,
game?
you know my tight end is in the 32 team?
Is it Jermaine Gresham?
League, Steve? It is Jermaine Gresham. Yes! So, hey, listen, the impressive thing here with Adrian Peterson is not so much the yardage. I mean, he had that nice run late. He did fumble a ball in a big spot that could have cost him the game. Yeah, I mean, wow. I said that I thought they'd go to a more balanced offense now with Drew Stanton in there. I think it's a little unbalanced to the running side. I don't think that he can continue to get those kind of carries and last because he is older. But it was impressive to see him on his last carry of the day after 36 previous carries for 25 yards. Very excited to see that, and hopefully he could keep up being a steady RB2 for the owners out there.
Kevin, was there anything from this game that you wanted to talk about? It was pretty ugly.
No, honestly, I didn't watch too much of it because I watched Red Zone, and there was really nothing to play on Red Zone. So, no, I mean, Carlos Hyde had a good day in the passing game, 9 catches for 84 yards, and he ends up with over 100 yards total. But no, this is not a good offense. I think either offense is going to be, is going to struggle. So.
Oh, by the way, Carlos Hyde also ejected from the game for fighting.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Yes, of course. Of course. Not happy with the
Maybe.
0-9 start.
I wouldn't be either. The real question is, so they play next week, and we've heard about obviously Garoppolo. Is Garoppolo going to get in? I mean, Bethard was okay in this game. He wasn't terrible, but he really didn't do anything of note. So he didn't rush for a touchdown. But did they just bite the bullet and go with Garoppolo earlier, or what?
I don't think so. I think it would be a little premature for them to bring him in. I think initially they said that he wouldn't get in there before week 12, and then you also heard reports last week that he might not even play at all this year, which I think would be crazy. I agree. I do not believe that, but I think this next week might just be a little bit too soon. Although, Jacoby Brissett got traded to the Colts, and he started relatively quickly, although it didn't look very good, but he did get in there, so I guess you can't completely rule it out, but I would bet against it.
Yeah, but the difference is Jacoby Brissett was never their long-term solution. Now, maybe for this season, maybe they did know early on that Andrew Luck wasn't going to play this year, and I'm convinced that the reason they kept doing that was to sell tickets, keep giving people false hope, and then once they bought the early tickets, go, oh, he's coming back second half of the year. But Brissett is not their long-term solution. Garoppolo is. So putting him in there on a team like this that is kind of sort of brutal and running the risk of injury is something I will start to buy into, possibly thinking he doesn't get in there. But I understand also you want to get a look at him. You want to get a look at him in the offense before you say, hey, we're going to carry on with this guy next year. So I don't think any chance that it's next week. But I would say the original expectation of week 12 is reasonable.
Sal, what's the franchise number? I mean, it's like 23 million now for a quarterback. So
yeah, it's in the mid-20s.
You can't tell me for a second that they are going to go the entire season and not play him, and then franchise the guy and give him 23 million without ever having him seen him play it down. It's just not going to happen. He will get in there.
I said most likely he will get in there.
No,
I'm just
I know,
saying
I know.
understand if they don't,
I'm saying I get your point about the injuries, but there's just no chance that he doesn't get in. And in my opinion, why not let him get in there earlier? I mean, who cares? At the end of the day, you know that he's still learning the playbook. If he struggles in game one, fine, but he's not going to. I mean, your offense isn't going anywhere anyway, so you might as well get him in there and get as many looks at him as you can. If I'm them, I play him next week.
Wow. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, we must move on.
You're so crazy.
That's crazy. Anything else from this game?
Sorry, maybe it's this jet plane.
Yeah, it's got to be that.
Whoa.
You've been on that plane for a while.
Walk down that time check, flying cross country.
All right, we're moving on. The Washington football team travels out west. They visit the Seattle Seahawks and beat Seattle in Seattle 17-14 with a late touchdown drive led by my boy Kirk Cousins, who overall didn't look great in this game, but he looked pretty good when it mattered. They get this final touchdown. Rob Kelly, great day on the ground, 14 carries for 18 yards. He does get 2 touchdowns, which is all that matters. And so, Vernon Davis filling in for Jordan Reed, 6 catches for 72 yards. He is the biggest pass-catching threat on that team right now. Amazing. I love it. Absolutely love it. And then on the Seattle side of the ball, Russell Wilson is their best running back. And he also throws the ball a lot, quite a bit. 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, but also throws 2 interceptions. Doug Baldwin, touchdown, over 100 yards receiving. What is your takeaway from this game, Mr. Sal?
I mean, Wilson has been tremendous for fantasy owners in recent weeks. Those 2 interceptions, they kind of hurt a little bit, but it looked like he had the game won. He continues to find Baldwin consistently in what was probably not the best matchup. The Redskins are pretty good at defending wide receivers. It's clear that you play these 2 guys every week. If you have them as a stack, then you're very excited. I'll let Kevin get to the number 20 overall ranked running back, Tyler Lockett, whenever he feels like it.
Just poke the bear, Sal. Just continue to poke the bear. I really need that right
now. And I just wanted to tease him, but to me, this is you watch this game and you see what Vernon Davis could do, and you just really have to get angry at yourself at what Jordan Reed could be in this offense. And I think that when Jordan Reed comes back, when he's healthy, I think that they should continue to play Vernon Davis because he really does fit this offense and he plays well enough that I don't see a reason, if this guy's performing that way, why continue to play Jordan Reed, who just gets banged up? And I think that this is going to be one of those, if you did not take Vernon Davis to back up Jordan Reed, you're very disappointed right now, and you're going to be disappointed for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with you as far as that's concerned. I mean, we talked about it before the season that one of the reasons I didn't take Jordan Reed was because we felt like you had to take Vernon Davis. So hopefully most people did, but yeah, if you didn't, you're looking at these numbers and just thinking, why didn't I listen to those FLAFFL House guys? I really should have paid attention to them. So, I completely agree with you there. I thought it was interesting in this game, the Seattle running game. We heard all week how Eddie Lacy was going to get the majority of the touches. He gets 6 carries. Thomas Rawls get 9. Thomas Rawls was more effective in this one. They did run a little better than they have been. Not that that's saying much because this rushing game has been terrible overall, but Rawls looked decent in this one. Maybe the offensive line is a little more shored up after the trade for Dwayne Brown, and maybe we can see a little bit more of a running game going forward. I think they had to pass in this one a little bit more, and Russell Wilson obviously used his legs a lot, so they didn't need to lean on the running backs. But, I'm not suggesting get these guys into your starting lineup, but I do think Thomas Rawls is a guy that if he's on your roster and you were thinking about cutting him, maybe hold on to him for another week or two and see what happens, see if they kind of change their mode a little bit, because they may, particularly in games where they may get up, they may look to run out the clock, and Rawls might be a guy that can do it. And with this offensive line a little bit better than they have been, he could break one here or there.
Well, Lacy did get hurt in the game and did get ruled out in the first half. So at that point, Rawls did get used more, but I got to be honest with you, he didn't get enough touches. But the guy who looks the most lively every time he gets in there is McKissick. Just use this guy. I would use McKissick. I think he fits into the offense better along the lines of Procise. Procise is not there because he's not healthy, but I would just incorporate McKissick into the passing game, into the offense.
26 total yards.
Okay.
What looks so great about him?
Did you watch the game? Because you didn't know Eddie Lacy wasn't there, so I'm thinking you didn't watch the game. But McKissick looked faster and more electric every time he touched the ball. I understand how many yards he got. He didn't get a lot of touches.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, the guy gets 5 touches. I don't know that you really can determine that he was that much better than anyone else. I did watch the game. I thought Thomas Rawls looked good in what I saw. I did miss that Lacy left with an injury, but Rawls looked good to me anyway. So
I use my eyeballs. I know who looks better.
All right, boys. We're moving on because we're out of time.
Break it up.
Break it up. All right, last game on the docket. That is the Kansas City Chiefs going to Dallas to face the Cowboys, and the Cowboys win this one 28-17. The Chiefs on a little bit of a losing streak. I believe they've lost their last 3 games in a row. Kareem Hunt does not get into the end zone again this week, but he has a pretty bad game. He's 9 carries for 37 yards and only 4 catches for 24 yards. So not exactly what we are used to seeing. You can trade him to me if you're looking to get rid of him. I'll gladly take him.
Pick up Akeem Hunt. Much better.
Yeah, go ahead and do that, please, everybody. And the Cowboys, they looked pretty darn good. Ezekiel Elliott, he does his thing. He gets into the end zone again. Dak Prescott throws another 2 touchdowns and 250 yards passing. They just looked pretty solid all the way around today. Terrence Williams, the big receiving threat of the day. He gets 9 catches for 141. Cole Beasley gets both touchdowns. So, these are guys that you typically are going to have in there. Cole Beasley, he's a flex possibility almost each and every week because, he gets looks, but he gets 2 touchdowns today, so he really pays off with that. Kevin, what are you taking away from this game of the week? You
joke about dropping Kareem Hunt. Obviously, no one's going to drop him,
yes.
And I think he's going to be in your starting lineup every week. But at the same time, I'm definitely nervous that he has hit a little bit of a rookie wall and that he may be slowing down a little bit. And obviously, these guys from college come in, they're playing far more games and far more, than they ever have. particularly a guy like Hunt. I think that he, coming from Toledo, a college, the college Toledo, this could be a grind for him, and it's something to keep your eye on going forward. Obviously, like I said, I don't know that it changes your opinion on whether or not you start him, but I'd be concerned that he's not going to give you the same production that he was the rest of the season. And this is one of the reasons when we talked about it at the beginning of the season, everyone was so high on the fact that he was going to be the lead back in an Andy Reid offense, and that's all true. And clearly he's had a great season. Certainly a candidate for Rookie of the Year, but at the same time, you have to worry about these guys slowing down at the end of the season because it's always a possibility. Now, maybe next week he'll have 150 yards and 2 touchdowns and make all this sound stupid, but it's just something I'd be concerned with. So.
No, I don't think you're wrong at all, Kevin. And I think that the Chiefs on a whole, as Steve pointed out, was like, I don't know if it's 3 in a row, Steve, or if it's 3 out of the last 4. But whatever the case is, they have not played well.
Oh yeah, they beat
over
Denver.
The last few.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's they're 1-3 in the last 4. They've not played well, and Alex Smith, he threw his first interception today, so you can't really be too hard on Alex Smith. He's played phenomenal for where you have gotten him. Most likely, you added him as a free agent, but it looks like the Chiefs have gotten found out or figured out a little bit by the league. And the film is out on guys like Kareem Hunt and what they're doing. And that's what happens in the NFL. The NFL makes adjustments. The only team that has been consistent all year has been the Eagles. Even the Patriots have seemingly started to straighten it out, and the Steelers have straightened it out. But consistent over the course of 8 to 9 weeks, it's only been the Eagles. So we'll see how this goes forward. I think that opens up the door for Oakland to get back in there, even though I kind of left them for dead weeks ago.
Yeah, they did. It's the Chargers. It's all about the Chargers. They're coming on strong.
Jerk.
You got nothing. All right, that's it for me. I'm done. I'm out. Peace.
Have a good night, Steve.
All right. Well, it was nice talking to you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can do that at Falafel House. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you can just search for Falafel House on those fine social media platforms. And, of course, you can go to falafelhouse.com where you can find our rankings and Sal's Sink or Swim article, where I believe he had... Who'd you have on there this week, Sal?
Jared Goff and Tyler Higbee were both on the swim list this week.
Interesting. Higbee did only have that one catch, but he got into the end zone, so that's nice. Good on
but
you.
But if the bye week fill-in, man, yeah!
That's right. So, yeah, go ahead and go to falafelhouse.com, and that's it for me, Sal.
Hey, thank you, everybody, for joining us. As we've pointed out so many times, and it sucks to have to do this over and over again because there seemingly is so much tragedy in this damn world, especially in this country. And for those of you who didn't see, there was a shooting in Texas today in a church. I believe like 20 people were killed. I'm glad you guys come. You listen to us. You allow us to record these shows, and we have a good time here because it's a definite good distraction from some of the evil and hurt and garbage that goes on in this country. So wherever you are tonight, tomorrow, whatever it is, hug your wife, hug your children, hug your friends, tell them you love them because you never know what goes on in this world. And I just want to thank you guys for letting me do this every week. And it's a great distraction.
I would also like to thank everyone for listening to this episode of Falafel House, and I echo Sal's sentiments there. And I just want to remind everyone to add a little charity to your fantasy playing experience. We're getting closer to the holiday seasons. They cannot come quick enough for me so I can get out of this hellhole. But overall, just make sure you add some type of charitable aspect to your fantasy. It'll definitely make your season a lot more enjoyable. So we will be back here again on Tuesday. I'm going to try to correct the wind tunnel effect here, but hopefully I won't have lost it by then and done something terrible. So, Steve, you go ahead and hit the button.
Okay.